I'm Crypto Soul, and welcome back to the Erishow, where I talk to the top builders and leaders in the crypto space. And today, in episode 42, we are joined by Jack, who is a co-founder of Sommelier and also an advisor to many, many Cosmos-related projects. And it's a thrill to have you here, Jack. Welcome.
Erica, thank you very much for having me. Just listening to your intro, I love the name Erishow. And it makes me wish I had named my show The Jack Show instead of Conversations with Jack, which just sounds boomer. So thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. I thought it was very intuitive. And it's a very simple thing. I think you'll be welcomed by the Koreans too. So that was pretty nice. I mean, it's a thrill to have you because, you've obviously been a huge, figure in the Cosmos ecosystem. And I think my show needs a bit more Cosmos colors too. So, I'd love to talk to you about like your whole journey and, what led you here, just everything, your insights. So, why don't we do a short intro about yourself and just to, for viewers that may not know about you. So please go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. So my name's Jack Zampolin. I'm currently working on two projects primarily. They kind of coexist. One is a company called Sommelier, where we're building managed smart contracts using a Cosmos chain. And we'll get into Sommelier a bit more later. And I also have a validator company called Strangelove Ventures, where we validate on a number of networks, advise a number of projects, and also support various open source infrastructure around the Cosmos. But as far as like how I got into crypto, I think that's a great question. I started programming back in 2013, 2014, and did a boot camp in San Francisco in early 2015. So I'm a boot camp grad. Started working at a company called InfluxDB at the time. And I was there for about 2 years, but that was a database company and it was written in the Go programming language, which is very similar. And they had a clustering algorithm too. So kind of a blockchain. And really loved that work and was there for about 2 years. And right around the end of my time there was at the end of 2016, early 2017. And Erica, I think you remember that time period very, very fondly, I would imagine.
Yes, good times.
And my roommate at the time started working at a company called Blockstack, which is totally still around. And he was like, "Hey, Jack, do you want to come be a developer evangelist at Blockstack?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, that sounds great." So I was employee number 9 there, and
really,
yeah.
Oh my God, I didn't know about this.
Yeah, and did the entire 2017 bull run at Blockstack. So I started there in spring of that year, right around when Cosmos raised the ICO. I remember looking at that, being like, "What is this Cosmos thing? Like Bitcoin's the only thing that matters," because Blockstack, as I'm sure you know, Bitcoin maxis strong. Was there for about a year. And after the 2017 run-up, they kind of refocused on the core infrastructure and we're building out what would become Clarity in their smart contracting language.
Yeah.
And we're no longer like building around this sort of like data locker concept that they had. There's a company called 3box on Ethereum that I think did that a little bit better, but I think they've even kind of disappeared. That whole idea of using the blockchain only as pointers for data off-chain has kind of died. Would be interesting, which is, anyway, sort of a random side note. But after I left there, I really wanted to go work in Go again. And I wanted to work in sort of like advanced blockchain tech. Because after living through the 2017 run-up, all of the people talking about Bitcoin not being able to scale, I was like, I know what that means, and I've seen it, so we need something better. And just in a random fluke of fate, the Tendermint offices were a 5-minute bike ride from my house. Ended up interviewing a couple times there and had a call with Zachy Manin, and he was like, "Yeah, you should come work here. We'll get you hired." And so I started on at Tendermint in, I guess, early 2018. Spring of 2018. So it was like a bomb had just gone off there because the market had just tanked and everyone was kind of in disarray. And what we were building was incredibly ambitious. So that was kind of how I got into Tendermint.
Oh, this is a totally like new side that I never knew. I mean, I didn't know you were involved overnight at Blockstack for one.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, Muni was on the show, so like
Oh, Muni was on the show. Cool. Yeah, I helped them migrate a bunch of users off of Namecoin.
Oh my God.
So like, yeah, like real random crypto old school cuts.
Yeah, I think these type of stories, like they go way back in terms of crypto years, right? And a lot of people don't know about the backstory about everything. And so this is a great intro to, the crypto history. Oh my God, we're all intertwined.
Fantastic, by the way. I really like and respect him quite a bit.
Same here. He's been wonderful, and shout out to Munib. But random shout out. But oh my gosh. Okay, so you've been in the Cosmos ecosystem since then, and you've done a variety of things. And as you explained just briefly, but I didn't know Strange Love Fund was a validator, but like I thought it was a fund, but yeah.
We used to go by Pylon or Jack Zampolin validator, and there were way too many pylons.
Yes.
Like, I'm sure your show has a ton of StarCraft fans. Like I also am a StarCraft fan. Too many pylons, so we rebranded. We are now Strange Love.
No wonder. Yeah, so I was like, okay, there's pylons. And okay, all right. Now it's all clarified. But oh my gosh, this is great. So in your advisors to, many other protocols as well, which is like Akash is one right now.
Yeah.
You were also involved in the co-founding process as well. Is that right?
In Akash, well, no, not technically. I was the first investor at Akash when they started raising their token round, and really worked to help get them online with their Cosmos chain. I actually spent a stint there as a VP of product for a few months in 2020, really primarily to help them get the chain off the ground and to help with validator set formation.
And okay, so you were an investor and in the beginning, but why was the project like important to you, valuable to you? And
that's a great question,
because like I think you've picked a variety of really good quality projects to work with, and I just want to know like what your philosophy is when choosing a good project to work with and to invest in. Just want to hear that backstory as well.
I think that, the way that I have approached this since I've gotten into the computing industry, and even before I was at blockchain, I started doing this when I was in cloud. And I think that story is really instructive. I like to look back at the history of computing. I'm a historian. I love history. You see these like weird Soviet maps on my wall. Like I read history all the time. Like it's probably my biggest hobby. So like I view computing that way too. If we want to understand what's going to happen in the future, we need to deeply understand the past and how we got here. And when I was in cloud, the sort of war that I was watching play out between 2015 and 2017 was the container orchestrator war. If you've ever heard of a project called Kubernetes, it is ubiquitous. But back then, Kubernetes was one of about 5 to 10 competing projects. And I had a cool opportunity where I was working to work on every single one of them and to build integrations into all of these different container projects. And through that, I got a chance to try them as a developer. And what we've seen, and you see Steve Ballmer chanting developers. What we've seen over and over again throughout history is the projects that are most user-friendly, most friendly to developers, are the ones that are most likely to get adopted and most likely to win in an adoption war. And after like trying out all the different products, I was like, Kubernetes is clearly the best. Like if you're looking at this as an open source developer, it's got the most engaged community. It's got the most work behind it. It's the easiest to use. There's the best documentation. And I ended up kind of betting my career at the time on Kubernetes, and that worked out great. And so fast forward a couple of years, I've done Blockstack. I'm in the Cosmos ecosystem. And I'm sitting there thinking, how do I sort of marry this experience I had in the cloud world with blockchain? And how do we make, Kubernetes either run on Tendermint or Tendermint managed Kubernetes clusters, which is basically the Akash product. And I had actually spoken to 3 other teams who were interested in building this. And I was trying to get them grants from Tendermint to build this product. So Greg showed up out of nowhere. And he's like, hey, I've been building this thing and I want to demo it for you. And my jaw dropped. And I was like, Greg, I've been trying to get people to do this. How do I give you money? Oh. And that was actually the first angel investment I ever made as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, Greg is, he just really came out of nowhere, but he's been like super builder. So I really admire what he's been doing. But
Greg also kind of came out of that traditional cloud world and had kind of a similar Kubernetes experience, and worked deeply on a number of pieces of that platform, especially the multi-cluster federation stuff during his time at Firebase and Google. So,
oh my gosh. Oh, this is super interesting. Yeah, Greg should be on the show soon as well. But yeah, I mean, totally interesting. And back to Tendermint, you were one of the, early members in 2018, and this journey has been quite interesting and so far. And I think you do agree with that as well. But what was that journey like for you being, in a rocket ship? But like, I think it's been progressing a lot. There were a lot of changes in between.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you oversee? What's your insight on that?
It's been an absolutely incredible experience. First off, like, I'm going to probably talk about some stuff I haven't talked about on other podcasts. So like, I'll get into a little bit of that, but the people are fantastic. The software is like world-class. And that's like, what's always kept me here is the people in the software. But Tendermint and Cosmos in general is not a traditional company. And you look around blockchain and you even see, Terra, as decentralized as it is, and you look at the validator set, Terraform Labs is this strong kind of center that sort of sets the tone and helps move that forward. Mm-hmm. And I think Terra has actually done one of the better jobs at staying decentralized out of some of these more founder-led blockchains. But one of the common knocks against Cosmos is that it's not founder-led, that it is such this sort of decentralized community. And that really comes from kind of the principles that we had, which is build this open decentralized system that looks a lot like the internet and ship it. And, the people who are sort of drawn to a vision like that are very independent, don't like to be told what to do, and have trouble working together in groups. So a lot of my experience at Cosmos and Tendermint has been trying to herd these crazy cats into shipping IBC or the hub or the Cosmos SDK. And, that's been fantastic. Doing Game of Stakes, which was one of the first big projects that I worked on at Cosmos. Funny story about Game of Stakes. When I started, Zachy goes, "Hey, so Jack, I need you to do a dashboard for Game of Stakes." And I was like, I know a little JavaScript. I can try to build that. Mm-hmm. And I went around trying to gather requirements to build the dashboard. And it was through that process where I was like, no one knows what's going on here. There's no one leading the core development of the software that's supposed to ship for Game of Stakes. So like, in order to do Game of Stakes, I'll lead the core development. And that was kind of how I got into like being the product manager at Cosmos.
This is fascinating. It's all fate, I think it's all just another.
Yeah, it is.
You never know what you have in front of you, but yeah, this is it's totally fate, and I think you've done an amazing job at leading, the entire product line. And it's just, the Game of Stakes was awesome, by the way.
Game of Stakes was super fun. That was, the Snakefish team and the Certus One team definitely stood out for me from that crew. Also, the Sentinel crew was one of the first time we met them. Like, just a lot of those names are still around.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, this is great. And of course, like when you're right now, you're also like, as I said before, you're invested in the Cosmos ecosystem, but like, I think there's been a lot of talks about the marketing incentives, onboarding. Yeah. This is a question on Twitter, but like, I think many are curious about this and they have many opinions on it. But what's your general take on it, about the current status of the ecosystem? What's more necessary? What's more, I guess, in demand, I would say. And there's this also talk about Props 52, as I think I've seen on Twitter, your Twitter. Do you think it'll be passed, or should it be passed? Just your opinion on that as well. That would be great.
So first off, Prop 52, I think if we go back to like when Osmosis launched, it was like, blockchain years, it's like goes real quick. The sort of competitive landscape and the culture around the hub at that point was not really ready to engage in that kind of cross-chain way. And we were in the middle of trying to launch the Gravity DEX, and there was a huge effort around that. And I think that there was a little bit of rivalry between Osmosis and the hub. Yeah. And the timing of the proposal in particular was really contentious. And like Sunny and the team, I love them. They're fantastic. I talk to them all the time. But, you know, I think that waiting a couple of weeks would have made that pass with no drama. I think if they put it up for a hub validator vote right now, I know Strangelove would vote yes. I think the future of the Cosmos Hub in a lot of ways is this sort of DAO to DAO collaboration and selling interchain services to many of these different teams. So yeah, that's Prop 52. And that sort of leads into my other point about what do we need as a community? What do we need to build? You know, the Gravity DEX, like when we decided at the beginning of the year that that was going to be a big piece that we were going to launch this year, you know, there were a number of reasons why that happened. I think now that we've launched it and, you know, we've seen Osmosis kind of win the adoption war, the hub doesn't want to be a DeFi casino. Like that's never been the vision for the hub. Is there an argument to be made for sort of a utility DEX on the hub to swap in and out of tokens as you're moving through the hub? Yeah, definitely. And like we've got that in the Gravity DEX. But I'm not necessarily in support of spending a bunch of hub money on, you know, adding additional features there and really building out a full-featured DeFi ecosystem on the hub. I don't think that's what the purpose of the Cosmos Hub is. I think, you know, the purpose of the Cosmos Hub back in 2016, 2017 was selling interchain services and really connecting all of the different chains. And back in 2016, 2017, even 2018, when I started, I was like, that's crazy. You people are nuts. I have no idea where you think you're going to sell interchain services with a protocol you haven't even deployed yet. But now that we've got IBC and there's like 25, 30 chains, there's billions of dollars of value on it. This idea of selling interchain services is much more close to reality. And in fact, Strangelove, we shipped a key feature of the coming upgrade on the Cosmos Hub, which is the IBC packet router. And this allows you to do multi-hop IBC transactions and use the hub to route those. And, you know, this is like the most basic routing feature you could build. One of the reasons I did it is because I was building a similar feature for the Gravity Bridge. And I was like, you could do this on the hub and it would be way easier. And I think I implemented it in like 200 lines of code, just like hacking it together. And I was like, okay, cool. Like we should just ship this. And so anyway, that's really helped drive the discussion and the narrative around interchain services on the hub. Routing is sort of one of them that I'm really excited about. I think there's a lot of opportunity for growth there. And there's a lot of like really cool technical solutions around multi-hop IBC routing. Chain naming service is another one. The ability to sort of like provide human readable names for a lot of this machine readable information around all of these different chains in IBC, and to help users kind of map those connections. Because right now that's hard. It's just very difficult to do, requires a lot of expertise. And I think the hub could make that user experience easier, make it bring a lot more developers in. And then the third kind of big piece of that will be shared security, which is a huge feature that is actively being worked on. And the IBC team is planning to ship an initial version, I think, early next year. So, you know, I think the future of the hub is shared services, and what we need is more people working on that.
Absolutely. We need, when I was doing the meetup in Lisbon, one of the common concerns or interests for 2022 is having good human resources on the team, and just having the team is going to explode and the projects are going to explode next year as well. So I think the lack of good human resources, like the core concern for like a lot of the teams. But yeah, I just wanted to
totally. I mean,
totally agree.
My last month has been hiring.
Oh, really?
Yeah, totally.
For Sommelier or for other projects?
Yeah.
I see. Yeah. So every project is hiring.
Yes, we are. So I'm hiring if you want to work with me, or if you want one of my connections. Like I know a bunch of Cosmos projects that need engineers. Holler at me. Even non-engineering positions.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure that a lot of, I mean, even for Koreans, I think a lot of Korean designers, developers are looking for, to get really hooked to the ecosystem. So yeah, I think it's a good shout out. Please give Jack a Twitter.
It actually just reminded me to hit somebody up.
That's good.
Yeah, hit me up on Twitter. That's probably the easiest place to find me. I'm also on Telegram, all over the place.
Thanks for sharing that. And speaking of Sommelier, I might be butchering the accent because I'm not. Yeah,
no, that's the exact correct way to say it.
Yeah, sorry.
In fact, you say it better than most Americans. So.
Okay, well, thank you for that. So how did the team come about? It was a very just really came out of, actually nowhere, but Zaki was working on it for quite some time, as you as well, but just curious about how that came together, and the team is a superstar. But what inspired you to, co-found the team together? So yeah, just curious about the backstory too.
Yeah, so during what we euphemistically refer to as the GORE, the Great Reorganization Event,
yes.
back in the GORE, yes.
The GORE.
Yeah.
Okay.
Back in early 2020, I left Tendermint along with a number of other folks, and a bunch of those folks ended up in Interchain Berlin, and some of the other US folks ended up at a variety of entities, and I basically ended up nowhere. So what I was doing was working with Zaki on Game of Zones and shipping IBC, and working really hard on the relayer, and I was really passionate about that work and wanted to continue it. But what I wanted more than anything was to start a company with Zaki. We've worked really well together, and I have a ton of respect for him. I think I'm not alone in the industry. Pretty much every chain has some Zaki story where they're like, yeah, Zaki showed up and explained to us this complex cryptography and then connected us with a cryptographer to do it. And that's the basis of our consensus system. And it's like, that's like 90% of blockchains out there, funny enough. So, having worked closely with him for a few years, I wanted to continue to do that. We did that with Game of Zones, and then I ended up going to do Akash for a little while, but, we always stayed in touch. And after we had launched Akash, I was still involved in the IBC relayer world, and Zaki had started to work on this Gravity Bridge project. And there was this guy, Tariq, who started... Oh, yes. I don't know if you've met Tariq. He's fantastic. He was a organizer of the San Francisco Bitcoin meetup back in 2011, 2012. So he's been in crypto for a long time. And Zaki had brought on Tariq to help him do some organization around this thing called the Unify DAO. And this was to kind of fund and spotlight Cosmos projects. One of those was the Gravity Bridge. And, Zaki and Tariq and I all lived in the Bay, and we ended up just taking a ton of walks together and talking about different products we could build on top of this. Because, one of the things that Zaki's always told me about bridging technology is you can't build a bridge to nowhere. Well, you can, but no one's going to use it. You need to have reasons to use the bridge, and there needs to be utility behind it. Otherwise, the users will not come.
Right.
So we were talking about, so what can we do with this cool Ethereum to Cosmos bridge, and how can we do go-to-market for that? And the first use case that we were all like, yeah, this is really cool, was around Uniswap v2 and permanent loss. So in Uniswap v2, if the prices of the tokens that you're trading against fluctuate too much, you end up with more of one or the other, and there's some implied loss there. So the initial product that we spec'd out and started building would pull your liquidity if prices moved too much. And that would be managed by the Cosmos chain. Obviously, this sounds like a lot of other things people are familiar with, but the big differentiator with Som is that every layer of this stack is decentralized. There's no one key anywhere that can steal funds, like with Keeper Network or a lot of the various Ethereum bridges, which are controlled by small multi-sigs, or DeFi contracts, which are actually controlled, if you look at the upgrade path, where a user could upgrade, steal all the funds, by very small multi-sigs. We wanted something that was really decentralized and actually resistant to regulatory pressure. And that's sort of the beginning of how we started Som.
That's a good differentiating factor, because right now, as you've seen, there's so many hacking incidents, and it's just really insecure. So, wow. I think one of the most common, like, kind of simple questions was like, why is it called Sommelier? Like, I know that it's
my name actually, so I can tell you the whole story.
Please do, please do.
So do you remember food coins?
Food coins, yes, yes, yes. Oh my goodness.
So we were at the tail end of food coin season. We had come up with the idea for Sommelier, and we were like, so how do we name this thing? And we were throwing around these various food related names, and I was like, why don't we call it Sommelier? We're like curating the finest liquidity in DeFi for people, and it's a food coin name. And everyone was like, great, Som, done, go. And that's how we named it.
Curating the good quality. That's, yeah, I mean, I can imagine, like, I've seen the memes. I mean, I've seen your, GIF files, but yeah, I totally understand the philosophy behind it. But it's a very simple story, I would say, in naming. But
I also started studying when I was, before I started programming, I actually spent 5 years cooking professionally.
Oh my gosh.
And as part of that, started studying for my sommelier exam and did a lot of wine tasting, and definitely like know the wine industry quite a bit. So that's why the name was like top of mind for me.
No wonder. Like, oh my goodness, this is great. But yeah, it's a good name. I mean, I think a lot of people think like this is a very intuitively good name, and it turned out really well for the project. And also, like, I think you were focused on shipping as well very quickly, and it was just really, the team built really fast. In my mind, I was like, wow, this is like shipping day by day, and it was moving so fast. That is like a core value that we have. And I think that Zucky and I have always brought that to the Cosmos community. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of blockchains that get caught in this kind of research mentality. And we have always tried to be like, ship, get it out in front of users and improve it. And Tariq is like 5 times more of that than we are. So it's a good combo. Oh, yeah, I'm in the Unified DAO Telegram room, by the way, and I've been kind of looking at how quickly the team was moving and how Tariq was moving. So high respect for the whole team. And Zaki, of course, he's been nonstop building. So kudos to all of you. So currently, can you share us like what stage of the project, development process is in, and what you're currently up to? Anything that you can share with us? That'd be great.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So we just recently closed a $23 million raise anchored by Polychain, which is really, really exciting. We're stoked to work with this set of investors, and I would encourage folks, if you're interested, go check out the news articles on that. So that's a huge piece of news that keeps us going. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's exciting.
Very exciting.
That is the first time I've ever raised as a co-founder, so that was fun. Yeah.
What an amazing experience, to be honest. I really want to go through that as well, but like that's once in a lifetime experience, I think.
I hope.
I hope.
Yeah, so where are we with Som? With this sort of keeping in mind that we are ship, iterate, get it out in front of users, we have this super complex project. There's a data science backend that each validator needs to run, because we do want to decentralize this protocol so there's no single points of failure. Mm-hmm. So that's based on the graph and a bunch of other open source data from Ethereum. That's this whole work stream. We have the Cosmos chain, which sort of connects all of the various pieces and is necessarily the hardest part of it. There's this relayer between Cosmos and Ethereum that moves data back and forth between the Cosmos chain and the Ethereum smart contract. There's Ethereum smart contract infrastructure, starting with the Gravity contract, and then also the seller contracts for Sommelier that manage liquidity in now Uniswap v3, because v3 launched while we've been working on this. And then there's obviously the JavaScript front ends as well. So with each of those pieces, what we've tried to do is move engineering along each of those pieces and still try to ship things along the way. So with the data science backend and the front end team, they've built this way to use our predictions, or really what they are is a bunch of historical data, and then we throw Bollinger Bands around them, and that's where you put your liquidity for V3. And we made the easiest way to add liquidity to Uniswap v3 that doesn't make you put in your own prices, and it works a lot like how you would expect V2 liquidity addition to work. and used that experience to help build up the front end team, build up our Solidity skills as a company, because, Zaki and I work primarily in Cosmos, and the Solidity stuff was kind of new for us a little bit. I know it's been a huge learning experience for me. So that piece of it, we kind of continued to ship in. And then the Gravity Bridge itself, obviously there's been a whole ton of ink spilled around the Gravity Bridge over the last few months. We have been very actively involved in testing and working with the Gravity Bridge and all of the other teams that are building Gravity Bridges. I think there's 3 or 4 forks now, and we've been in active contact with all of those folks, working with them on their test nets to help get more production experience with the Gravity Bridge. So there's that piece of it. And what we're in the process of doing right now, which has been the most devilishly hard part of it, is making sure that the whole system works together seamlessly. And, the way that this has to work, so we've got liquidity over in Uniswap v3. And what has to happen is the validators are listening to the data science backend when they see that the models predict that we should move the liquidity. They vote on that. That vote gets accepted into the Cosmos chain. We originate an Ethereum transaction from inside the Cosmos chain state machine that then gets relayed over to Ethereum, hits the Gravity contract, and then goes from there to the seller contract, and then back to the Cosmos chain to say it happened. And every step of that has been painful. But we now have that whole thing finally passing tests end to end, which is amazing. And we're looking to ship that here soon. I think we've got a drop dead date on the 15th. And if we don't get it out then we'll get it out early next year. But look to see Sommelier chain managed sellers here soon. The other big piece of news that I'm even hesitant to talk about is the airdrop. There is an airdrop. There's info in the forum. I would encourage folks to look at it if you're interested. The folks that we're going to be airdropping to are users of the existing Sommelier app. If you've used it to add liquidity to Uniswap v3, you will probably get some tokens. That's the biggest chunk. And then a select set of liquidity providers on Uniswap, as well as a select set of liquidity providers on Osmosis, sorry. And we've got all the JSON blobs up. You should, if you're interested and care too much, you should go see what you're going to get. And that airdrop will be completed either on the 15th or early in January.
Oh, thanks for sharing that. That will be a very interesting piece of information for a lot of the followers. But I mean, in terms of airdrops, I think it's there's pros and cons, but I think in general, especially for the DeFi space, I think it's pretty common now. But just on a personal level, what's your take on the general perception of airdrops? Because the community members are excited, of course, and that gets them involved, and that's a reward. But there are some pros and cons, right? I mean, I think it might
definitely some pros and cons. I think anytime you give away free money, people are angry, just no matter what. I honestly don't understand that, but this seems to be a human thing. It's across every culture I've ever interacted with. And if you're giving out free money, people are going to be pissed. So don't know what that's about. That's probably the biggest negative of airdrops. But I do think that, it is this fundamentally new company bootstrapping mechanism that we have in crypto. And it's extremely powerful. And what we're doing right now is stumbling around with this knife with a blindfold on. And, there's a lot of mistakes. People don't do airdrops right, or they get gamed, or whatever it is. And, I think that anytime an industry is figuring out some incredibly powerful mechanism like this, you're going to see all kinds of things. But giving ownership in the platform to your initial users is one of the strongest things that I think you can do as a protocol. And I'm hugely pro airdrops for that reason. There's negative things about them. And, it's annoying to me when people hit me up and they're like, Jack, why didn't I get my airdrop? Or how do I configure my Kepler? And it's there's docs. But, on the whole, it's been a fantastic experience. I think the best airdrop that I've seen is the Osmosis airdrop, and then the Juno airdrop, very similar airdrops in a lot of ways. I thought those were fantastic in the Cosmos world. I know there's been a number in the Ethereum world, but I am much less involved there. So those are the kind of examples that come to mind. But it's a great way to build community and more broadly distribute your tokens so that more people care about your project. And at the end of the day, like, that's what it's about, like getting more and more people to care. And like, if you give people ownership, especially people who are early, they will be loud for you. And like, that's what we need in this industry.
Yeah, that's a very good point because, I mean, as you said, there are pros and cons, but I think if you do it right, and there might be some trial and error during the process, but I think like the crypto industry does need that to boost some of the early commitments and interest in the protocol. So that's a very good point. I've never done airdrops on my own, so I just want to hear your own opinion. Who's done airdrop? Who were planning?
Well, actually, this is my first one.
See, this is a new thing for all of us, but, you know, I think I'm very excited to see what it's going to unveil and how the response is going to be. I'm sure it's going to be great, but yeah, very exciting new first tries for you into the fundraising, also the airdrop.
It'll be great. You know, Sommelier has been fantastic this year. It's a great group of folks, and you know, I think that the tech that we're building is really exciting and fun, and there's a lot of demand for what we do. And, you know, it's just cool to do work like that.
Awesome. Many of the questions on Twitter dealt with the programming language of yourself. Let's ask a few. Like, what was your first programming language, and what is your current favorite language that you can share with us?
That's a great question. So my first programming language, I tried to pick up Python in order to automate marketing things, which I know you can identify with. And my current favorite programming language is Go. I love Go. I don't want to write anything else, but I am constantly forced to. So, yeah.
And what languages are you seeking to learn more in the future?
Rust.
No Solidity?
No. I'm going to be a COSM WASM smart contracts person, like real excited about that. I can read Solidity. I know how to work with Solidity contracts. I don't like writing Solidity. It scares me. There's way too many ways to shoot yourself in the foot, i.e. lose all the user's money with a simple programming error. And I think a lot of that is because Solidity lets you do really powerful things, and the language doesn't always warn you that you're doing that. One of the nice parts about programming in Cosmos is it's always really obvious when you're moving coins around or you're exposing that access. And the programming culture we have is like very strong around safety. You know, the chain will halt before anyone can mint coins that don't exist. So, you know, that's like, and in Ethereum, it's very much like, you know, test and prod and like do it live and like ship this code and make it work. And, you know, I have learned a lot from that. A lot of this past year has been testing IBC stuff in prod. And, you know, we've worked really hard to test in prod too. You know, we've got contracts that support the work that we do on Uniswap v3 on the front end that are live. And, you know, we ship those and we've like tried to kind of continue shipping. So there's like definitely extremely valuable things we learned from that. But at the same time, you know, I don't like Solidity. So that's the end of the day what it is.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. And as you mentioned, like in test and prod, that's like one of the, I think, key ingredients in the DeFi space, like one of the main philosophies. But yeah, that's what's needed to really push this space forward. But what's your current take on like the DeFi space currently? I mean, you're a part of it, and also you've been, you know, I'm sure looking at it for quite some time, but there's some pros and cons, of course, but like, can you kind of share like your view on like security issues and maybe like, as you just kind of mentioned about that as well, but just kind of, can you go a little bit more deeper on like the general like insight on the DeFi space?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I think all of our goal is the same. Like, we want to build a parallel financial system and migrate the world over into this decentralized ecosystem as a counterbalance to governance in a lot of ways. And I think that, you know, what's happening in DeFi right now is really exciting. All these Anon teams shipping like really subversive pieces of code, like the cypherpunk in me is stoked. And I love that. But, you know, it comes with these huge downsides. And, you know, the only way that I can interact with that is sort of try to do the best that I can as a programmer. and not do things that I think are bad. And I think that, everyone out there is kind of doing that. Self-repaying loans is one of those things that I think a lot of traditional finance people find a little skeezy, but, when you have the assurances of a blockchain, works really well, and it's great. And we've seen these sort of self-repaying loan products go on numerous different chains. With all of I think the hottest thing happening in DeFi right now is the Frog Army and the Ohm forks. That is very interesting. You can build these sort of incentive mechanisms in all kinds of different ways. And I think we're finding ones that are incredibly sticky. Looking at the way Osmosis bootstrapped, it's kind of similar to the way Ohm bootstrapped in some ways, paying out large returns to early people who are really there providing the liquidity at the beginning of the protocol to get it live. Again, you can look at these things a number of different ways. You can say Ponzi, or you can say genius bootstrapping. And I think that there's a little bit of both going on. And, we're just going to have to kind of see how this thing works out. But, when we're talking about airdrops, we're talking about giving tokens to early community members, I don't think you're going to get a project off the ground in crypto if you don't do that. And doing it in a clever way that distributes that to the people who are either actually doing the work or the interest groups that you're most interested in targeting, those are worthwhile and worthy experiments that we need to run and figure out how to use. And this own bootstrapping mechanism is being used for climate DAOs and really cool stuff. So, I think that my current view on the DeFi ecosystem is basically more, please. I'm glad it's happening. But, I think anyone who's involved needs to do some research and make sure you're okay losing whatever you're putting into some of these crazy protocols. And, that is what it is. The only reason I'm comfortable in being invested in as heavily in Cosmos as I am is because I help write the core software.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's very important to really know about the project before you invest. And people tend to just kind of spread money all around, even though they don't really know. Aping in, yes, aping in. Still can't get that off my mind.
You said it right. It sounds great.
Yeah, I'm trying. Okay, let's talk about, so I'm sure that you have many interests besides, Cosmos related projects. Maybe it could be in the Cosmos related ecosystem, but also maybe something that you're not directly related to. Is there anything that you are interested in terms of project, or you found impressive that, just in anywhere in terms of the blockchain space?
Yeah. So, I think Solana this year has been incredibly impressive. Hot take, not really, but, Cosmos, the scaling paradigm we've taken is we want to scale blockchains by making a ton of blockchains and allowing them to talk. Yeah. And if you take the computer history route here, that's obvious. That's what happened with the internet. And that's why I'm a huge Cosmos bull and why I work on this technology. But another way to do it is to scale vertically, make faster and faster supercomputers. And, if you look at early this year, there was a huge raft of projects in 2018, 2019 that died trying to do all the transactions per second chain. I'm sure you can think of a handful in Korea that you talked to and Big Chain DB or, whatever it is, and the project's just gone.
Yeah.
And that's a really hard thing to do, and Solana's pulled it off in a really interesting way with some kind of wild tech. And, to see the validator community that they built and to see the community of folks that they built on top of that, I just think it's fascinating and a really cool thing this year that it's been fun to watch from the side and not have any part in.
Thanks for mentioning Solana. I mean, we've been in Lisbon, so I think we kind of saw what's been happening.
So hot right now.
By the way, what was your take on Lisbon? Just general. Yeah, I loved it.
I hadn't seen any of my Cosmos friends in like over 2 years.
Same. Yeah. So I felt very happy.
Yeah, that was how I felt about Lisbon. It was great.
Yeah, it really brought tears to my eyes. And I don't know, I thought it was very well balanced. I thought like the audience, the community members, like the OGs, like they were all together, and like the newbies, of course. But I think, the balance was just adequate. It wasn't too hypey. It was just, very solid.
Breakpoint was real hypey.
Yeah.
That was a very different vibe. I met a couple of folks at Breakpoint who I hadn't met from the Solana ecosystem, some folks behind the Anchor project, as well as Metaplex. And, it was really cool to get to meet with those teams. Funny enough, one of my engineers at Som left to go work on Solana NFTs. And is a huge part of the reason why Metaplex has been so successful. Shout out Levi. There's all kinds of different ways to sort of bootstrap a community. Cosmos has taken this very sort of like slow community first approach without a lot of marketing, and throwing tons of money at the problem totally works. And it's kind of wild to see how different that looks. So that was my experience at Breakpoint.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you 100%. I think one of the beauty of the Cosmos ecosystem is, and I think just as you mentioned, is we kind of tend to encompass like different protocols, and it's not siding with anything. I think it's just kind of like encompassing all sorts of different protocols and philosophies out there. I think that's one of the beauties of the system. I think Sebastian mentioned this in his Twitter. One of the last questions I want to ask was like, because you've been in space for quite some time, and you've been solidly growing and building, but what's your personal ultimate vision or regarding Sommelier, and also like personally, what would be your vision in this space? How would you see yourself in 5 to 10 years? Would you see yourself in crypto, like 100% to the end? Yeah, just curious about your vision.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going anywhere. The goal that Zaki signed me on for, and the goal that I've kind of signed on for, is migrate the existing financial system to decentralized alternatives. And that's a big job. It's going to take a decade or two. So, I try to be in this for the long term, and I try to get sleep. This is about as late as I take meetings. And I think a lot of people are generally shocked to find that I sleep 8 hours a night, and I sleep great. But it's extremely important. It is. I can't stress this enough. Crypto is 24/7. You can talk to people all day, every day if you want. And you will not sleep, and you will burn out real quick. And that is the quickest way to write your ticket out of an industry, is to just burn out. Absolutely. And I'm not going to say I've never burned out before, because I can name multiple periods in my career where it's like there was 2 months where I just didn't do a whole lot. Because I had worked too hard for a while. And, the older I get, the more and more I think it's just important to not do that. But yeah, where do I see myself in 10 years? Maybe founding some crazy startup to do next level cross-chain things, and, help migrate that existing financial system over to decentralized alternatives. One thing I'd really love to do, and one project, if we're talking fantasy here, and 10 years out might as well, I would run a local co-op bank that is a blockchain DAO in my local area. I think that would be super fun. I would love to do that.
That'd be fun. Local, really local, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's possible. I think
possible.
Yeah, totally. Anything is possible in this space. And I think, bringing small scale to, that's a really good starting point. And if you're in, San Francisco, totally possible.
Oh, I'm actually down. I'm down in between Los Angeles and San Francisco. So I moved out of San Francisco. I live in the country now. Right over there.
I see. Well,
so these are my Russian maps, and here's my San Francisco map.
Why Russia though? Any particular
the Russian
interest?
army made maps of the entire United States and distributed them to their military during the Cold War. This one dates from 1949, and this is the 1963 printing. And as soon as I found out about it, as a huge history nerd, I was like, I gotta have one for everywhere I've ever lived. So now I've got a bunch of them.
That's so cute. That's very fun. Yeah. But it's very important to have a non-crypto hobby as well, not just, being, of course, crypto is your life and your hobby, but I think it's really important that you keep your your non-crypto interests. Which my
biggest non-crypto interest is cooking.
I assumed. Yeah, I assumed. Can't wait to taste your, amazing dishes when, we can really meet offline. But I think...
Korean and Southern food, I think there's a lot of crossover there. I've made kimchi a few times. I've made a few different Korean dishes.
Oh my goodness.
I think you would probably love my shrimp and grits, and I would love to taste whatever you would cook.
Oh, that's great. Oh, and I wanted to ask, what's your take on the Korean community? Have you ever visited Korea, or have you?
I really want to go. I've never been. I love the Korean community. You guys are fantastic. I think the Korean and the Indian communities are two of the strongest in Cosmos. And the Korean community in particular is just outsized, huge, great folks. The Cosmos Station team, the Kepler team, Tony single-handedly holds up a huge chunk of the Cosmos ecosystem and speaks no English and just does a fantastic job. I have the utmost respect for those folks. A ton of validators and a bunch of folks, the Kaizen pool of people, so many Korean teams. Just it's an integral part of what we do.
It is. I hope that you can visit. Hopefully next year. Hopefully, please.
I think there's going to be a Seoul Cosmos conference next year. I'm hoping.
Well, I'm here, so who knows? I can play a part in that. But oh my gosh, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you soon next year in person again.
Yes.
But thank you so much for sharing your insight and your journey in the crypto space, and best of luck for your employment, hiring people, and hopefully we can reconnect. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Erica, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it. This was a blast. And you got some questions out of me that no one has asked me on a podcast before, so that's exciting.
Yay. Thank you so much.